Today we're going to make the two most famous cocktails from New Orleans, the Sazerac and the Ramos Gin Fizz. So let's waste no time and get started with the official cocktail of New Orleans, Sazerac. The history of the Sazerac is a little convoluted, but it's believed that in the mid-1800s, a man named Sewell T. Taylor began importing a brand of cognac that was called Sazerac. Now, Taylor had owned a bar before, and he sold it to a man named Aaron Bird. No, not Aaron Burr, but Aaron Bird. And he began mixing the cognac with a brand of local bitters produced by Antoine Peychaud. The Sazerac recipe has also been credited to Peychaud himself, and part of this confusion is that the recipe is not seen in print until the 1908 book, The World's Drinks and How to Mix Them, which is almost 60 years after this drink is first thought to have been created in New Orleans. Various recipes call for various ways to build a Sazerac, but the most official way is how we're going to build it today. We're going to build these in two identical glasses. Start by filling up a glass with ice. Now in our second glass, take 1.5 ounces of rye whiskey. Quarter ounce of simple syrup. And then 2 dashes of Peychaud's bitters. Now Peychaud's bitters is a must, and you can't just substitute this for something else, not even an Angostura bitters. So if you don't have it, try to find it. Now we're going to dump our glass with ice, and we're going to do an absinthe rinse. Now you can substitute this for Pernod or Absinthe, and you can even just put it straight into your glass, but I'm going to use a spray bottle. I find it's just a little bit easier and cleaner. And now we're going to add ice to our glass with our cocktail. And we're going to stir this exactly 30 times. Now we're going to strain it into our rinsed glass. Now this is a little unofficial, but I like to express a little lemon into it, and then garnish with a lemon twist. This to me is one of the most classic whiskey cocktails. It's got character and depth, and it's nuanced. Your absinthe in there, it's just barely recognizable. You can get a little bit of the sweetness and that anise licorice flavor. The main profile coming through is that spicy rye whiskey. The sugar is just enough. It's not overly sweet. It's not needing sweetness. And the lemon oil just adds like a little extra touch to this to add a little bit of complexity. Now, the one thing I often don't love about the Sazerac is it's served up. I think this would be great to serve like an old fashioned on one large ice cube. However, it's a smaller serving of a cocktail. It's just 1.5 ounces of alcohol in the drink, and that makes up a majority of the volume of this drink. So the idea here is you serve these and you can have more than one. And as soon as it gets warm, you've probably finished it and you're on to your next one already. Classic cocktail, one of the absolute best whiskey cocktails. And if you have not had a Sazerac, you should definitely try to make one at home, or head to New Orleans at the Sazerac bar, the Roosevelt Hotel, to get one there. They are world famous for their Sazeracs. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Sazerac Company, the Sazerac Company is a large alcohol company based inside of New Orleans, and they own Sazerac rye whiskey, which you'll see used the most commonly throughout New Orleans when you're making Sazeracs. Now, Sazerac rye whiskey is made at the Buffalo Trace Distillery, which is owned by the Sazerac Company. Now, they make a couple other things at the Buffalo Trace Distillery, including Buffalo Trace whiskey, but they also make Peychaud's bitters. Elsewhere, they actually own Absinthe. So it's this perfect closed circle cocktail where the Sazerac Company pretty much owns every aspect of this except for the lemon twist. And if you go to New Orleans, you'll even see the glassware labeled as Sazerac. I made it with absinthe from St. George. They're local to me, and they're actually the first company in the United States to make absinthe post-ban in 2006. If not, you can always find Pernod as an alternative, and Absinthe, which is also a New Orleans staple. I'd rather use the real stuff if I can. The original recipe also calls to do a rinse, where you pour it in, rinse around your glass, and then dump it out. I find it a little wasteful of absinthe, and since it's one of the more expensive bottles on the bar, I like to just put some in a spray bottle or an atomizer. You can control it a little better. Plus, it's delicious. Oh yeah. Now we're going to move on to the granddaddy of them all, the cocktail of all cocktails, one of the most notorious and one of the most time-consuming and difficult cocktails to make, and that's the Ramos Gin Fizz. This is a drink where we know its true origin and history. It was created in 1888 by Henry Ramos at the Imperial Cabinet Saloon. This was a popular drink at the time and all the way up until Prohibition, and was known at the time as the New Orleans Fizz. The drink was so popular and requires so much shaking that there are even accounts of him having a line of 12 bartenders that took turns shaking this drink to achieve the same consistency. I've even read accounts where he had bars that had 30 bartenders that were employed, and their only purpose was to shake these cocktails. Now, Ramos himself was a contradiction, as he was a temperance movement advocate, meaning he was in favor of prohibition, so guy. While Ramos created the New Orleans Fizz, which was later named after him, its popularity and resurgence after Prohibition is often credited to Louisiana Governor Huey Long, as it was one of his favorite drinks, and he visited the Roosevelt Hotel often, where this drink was famous for being served. Now, a story goes that as a U.S. Senator, Huey Long had a bartender from the Roosevelt Hotel come to New York to show others how to make this drink. Now, that was kind of a publicity stunt, and he was out there campaigning against the New Deal and against Roosevelt. Now, not to be confused, Roosevelt Hotel is named after Theodore Roosevelt and not his later cousin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So I kind of grew up around the Ramos Gin Fizz, but the way that I always saw them being made was in a blender, and that is not the correct way to make them. And it wasn't until my first trip to New Orleans over a decade ago where I went to the Sazerac bar at the Roosevelt Hotel and saw them make this drink officially for the first time. And the official way to make this drink that they do at the Sazerac bar at the Roosevelt Hotel is how we're going to make it today. Now, this is the type of establishment where the bartenders wear white dinner jackets and shake the cocktail for several minutes. It's also the type of place where you can order one and not be harassed by the bartender. They expect it there. It's on the menu there, and it's what they're famous for. Elsewhere, good luck. Even in New Orleans, I've ordered this drink and basically been told to go myself. Yeah, I ordered it somewhere. It wasn't even busy, and the bartender was pretty pissed off. But that's why we're making them here, so you can make them at home. And you're going to start by building this inside your small shaker tip. Okay, it's time for a confession. This part of the video right now, I'm filming a day after the other part of the video. And the reason for that is because yesterday, when I was filming, I made a really good tasting gin fizz, but it didn't have the right column on the top of the drink. So later that night, I went back and I made 2 more versions, and I still couldn't get the foam right. So I'm back today to try one last time. And part of the reason I'm doing this, I don't want to come back and revisit this drink in the future to try to make it the exactly correct way. So the proportions are correct, the way to make it are correct, but the technique, that's what gets you that perfect column, that perfect cylindrical sort of foam that comes off the top of the drink. So we're gonna do it right now for the final time, and fingers crossed, because I'm never gonna do this again. I'm going to start with 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup, 1/2 ounce of lime juice, and 1/2 ounce of lemon juice. I have mine already mixed together. 1 ounce of heavy cream, 2 ounces of gin, 1 egg white, and then we're going to put 2 dashes of an orange blossom water. And we're going to dry shake this for 30 seconds to a minute, And you want to make sure you get a really good seal, because when you're doing a dry shake, you're not having that cold air in there create a vacuum, so there's a greater chance that this pops off and makes a huge mess. So shake it for 30 seconds to a minute. Now we're gonna add 1 large ice cube and a couple of smaller ones for dilution. And now is the not fun part of making this drink. We're gonna shake this drink for 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes. Right, our tin is as frosty as it can get. I'm using an 8-ounce Collins glass that I did pre-chill. And right now the drink is kind of a perfect emulsified drink, but we need to let that foam set up. And to do that, it needs time to rest. That's gonna help us when we put our club soda in a few minutes. So to the fridge or the freezer for 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, it has been about 10 minutes now, and our drink is set up. So that foam on the top has separated. It's formed its own head, but the rest of the drink is not separated. It is still emulsified and mixed together. So the next thing we're going to do is add some club soda, and we're going to use our bar spoon. So for this, we're going to make a hole right in the middle with our bar spoon. And then we're going to take our club soda, have it ride right down the bar spoon. And that's how you do it. That's a perfect Ramos Gin Fizz. Now, to be like truthful with you, the foam here, this sort of cylinder head that comes out the top, it's really not a true sign that this is a great drink, because you can cheat this a little bit. You can add more cream or more egg whites. You can put it in the fridge or the freezer longer to help solidify the top of the drink. It makes for the best looking Gin Fizz, but another part that's important is the rest of the drink and keeping the rest of the drink emulsified. And if you do it right, your drink can sit out for quite a long time, half an hour to even an hour, and the rest of the drink will not separate. Let's see if it tastes any good. Another sign of a well done Ramos Gin Fizz is if your straw can stand straight up. There's just something about the mixture of the cream and the gin and that little touch of the floral notes from orange blossom water, as well as the acid from our lemon and lime juice. It is, without a doubt, one of the best cocktails of all time. And as far as cocktails go, this might be the one and only perfect cocktail. Now, these can be enjoyed anytime, but I think these are an especially great brunch drink, or for my family, a Christmas tradition. So enjoy them. And yes, it's heavy cream and egg in here, but you know, they're difficult to make, so you're not going to be making a lot of these drinks. And while this drink is a huge pain in the ass, and I don't plan on ever making it here ever again, I do think we should revisit this and try to find a way to make this in a blender or using a handheld immersion blender or something, or we can batch make these cocktails and try to achieve sort of the same result, but in a way easier format. So sometime in the future, we can try that. But this is it right here. The king of all cocktails, the Ramos Gin Fizz. All right, that's it for this one. That's 2 classic cocktails, 2 classic New Orleans cocktails, Sazerac and the Ramos Gin Fizz. If you've ever made one of these drinks, let me know in the comments below, or if you have a specific recipe that you enjoy. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one.